Hello, and welcome back to another chapter of Watch Out for the Lucky. Chapter 4. He had been waiting for around 2 hours at this point. Just a few minutes ago, he had waved goodbye to XP and Hypnosis Power Guy. Even with how much that guy talked, he never gave Green his name. Whether it was because Green never asked for it, or he just didn't realize he never told him, Green didn't know. But even though Green never asked, he did feel it was a bit hypocritical to give out your partner's name, but never your own. XP didn't even spare him a glance when they departed from the line, and through the door that was being held open for them by Starvoid. XP's partner, however, waved at Green so hard he feared he sprained his wrist before they even got to show the heroes their powers. No sound ever came through the door, no matter how hard Green tried to listen. He was really left in the dark about what this audition was truly going to look like for himself. Well, yes, Starvoid had told everyone what was going to be expected of them. Green doubted that he was giving everyone the full rundown of what was beyond that door. He had seen dozens of people go through the door already, and none of them had come back out. There must be another exit. Green assumes it as to not tell the rest of them what the audition was like. Nobody ever talked about the auditions when they were over. Clearly, not all 50 people here were going to get hired, and these auditions weren't the most rare event. Yet, when Green tried to look up what others went through in the audition, nobody had even written an article. It was possible that there was fine print on the back of the invitation contracting people into silence. Green never looked, but it was odd that nobody even tried to talk about it. Green sighed. Looking up from his feet, he silently counted the rest of people in line behind himself. Including himself, there were only 6 people left, and seems that those last 5 were a group as well, judging by how they were talking to each other. They had been since the beginning, jeering each other and laughing. They hadn't even attempted to even acknowledge Green's presence, which was fine by him. He'd never seen them before, out in the streets. He's not sure how they got invited, but intuition tells him this is the first and last time he will see this group. With nothing else to look at, he went back to staring at his shoes and waiting patiently. If he was being honest with himself, he was expecting to be waiting much longer than just 2 hours. With the amount of people that were here waiting, he was expecting to wait at least an hour for each group. Thinking back, that was kinda dumb. How would they get through all those people if everyone got a full hour? Interrupting his trail of thought, the door next to him abruptly opened, slightly startling Green into taking a step back. Looking up, he stares through the opaque purple visor of Starvoid. And while Green can't see a single thing past the visor of the helmet, he gets the distinct feeling that he's getting laughed at. He quickly stands up straighter, rolling his shoulders back. Green rests his hands on his bow and smiles back slightly embarrassed. Hopefully his chances haven't been ruined by that small lapse in concentration. Your turn. Come in and stand on the X on the floor. He gestured for Green to follow him. As he passes the threshold of the door frame, Starvoid closes the door behind him. Looking around the room, he was immediately drawn to the mighty tall ceilings. The whole room was about the size of a chapel, with white walls and floor. But the ceiling was made of purples and magentas in an A-frame, which made Green's wings twitch. There was a joist that would be just perfect to perch on. Shaking his head at such a thought, Green took in the rest of the room. Opposite the door he just entered through was a semicircular panel of tables, built up like a lecture hall. The first row sitting on ground level, then 3 more rising behind that. There appeared to be around 20 well-known heroes sitting behind this panel in various states of boredom. To the right of the heroes' table was a wall half built with one-way glass window. A door was set in the center, shut. The room beyond the door and the window is completely shrouded in black shadows. It was impossible to even tell how big the room even was. Green swallowed thickly. He has a good idea what happens beyond that door. His last step. His final challenge. He just has to get through this interview and hope whatever challenge is behind that door isn't something impossible. He purposefully turns his head away from the mysterious room to look back at the heroes, some of them staring at him as he walks to his spot marked on the floor. Green only recognized a few by name, mostly because those were the ones he had been in scuffles with before. This included the hero Tech, famous for his flame abilities. He's also a Blaze hybrid, and while most Blaze have some sort of fire ability, Tech isn't harmed by any fire either. His flame abilities are also abnormally strong as well. He's quite a strong adversary and has made his disdain for vigilantes quite well known. Sitting next to Tech was Queen of Hearts. He was busy playing with his infamous deck of cards he's never been seen without. Amazingly, QOH is reported to not actually have a superpower, just an impressive aim and card throwing. Green would know. That was a fight he almost didn't walk away from. And even though he did, he had the scars to prove that those cards were, without a doubt, sharpened somehow. Sitting in the top row, in the furthest seats possible, were Minos and Aphrodite. Green, personally, has never had to fight them, as they were both very vocal about their support for vigilantes. They never had actually tried to fight a vigilante, though they have been known to give those who hurt a few too many civilians a stern talking to. Minos has the ability to control mobs and other undead beings. She herself is said to be a zombie hybrid, which does bring some interesting ethics into play about the nature of her ability, but Green chooses not to think too hard about it. Aphrodite is just unimaginable. When he uses his power, you just overlook him. His face is completely unimaginable. Some say they see the most beautiful face they could ever imagine, while others report that they have seen the most horrific eldritch face they have ever seen. The lucky ones say they don't see anything at all. At the moment, Green just sees some guy with glasses and dyed green hair talking with a red-headed zombie hybrid. He hopes that it stays that way too. Finally, the only other hero Green recognizes sits in the center of them all on the bottom row. Hawkeye himself, buffing his nails, completely ignoring the rest of the room. He had his feet propped up on the table, leaning so far back in his chair even Green was worried he was about to fall. Scuffling slightly to himself, Green sees himself to the X on the floor like he was told. He was around 20 feet away from the heroes in the dead center of the room, the highest peak of the roof directly above him. He watches quietly as Starvoid walks around the table to take his seat next to Hawkeye, pushing his feet off the table with a huff. Hawkeye grunts, dropping his nail buff, and glaring at the masked hero, not even turning his head to look at him. Starvoid picks up a clipboard before addressing the room. Hawkeye crosses his arms over his chest, finally looking past the table to see who was on the floor now. His eyebrows raise over his glasses, realizing who he was looking at. Green smirked. Alright, our next auditionee is a vigilante that most of us probably know, Starvoid says, getting everyone's attention. All of them stop their conversations, focusing on Green in the center of the room. Green wouldn't call himself a nervous guy, especially not here doing what his goal has always been, but he watches all their eyes collectively looking behind him at his wings. Unconsciously, he ruffles them, pulling them in tighter behind his back. His grip on his bow tightens slightly, wheeling their eyes off them. He shifts from foot to foot, noting that several eyes follow him. Please state your name, age, and any abilities, Starvoid asks, writing on his clipboard while keeping his head facing Green. I don't have a vigilante name, Green starts. He hesitates before looking over to Hawkeye, but some have chosen to call me Pesky Bird. He smiles sweetly at Hawkeye, who just scoffs and rolls his eyes. I'm 24, and as for powers, the only thing I have is my hybridity. My wings are powerful, and last I checked, I can carry as much as 200 extra pounds of weight. And while it's not a power, I'm very good with my bow and arrow. Green pulls his bow over his head to show off its craftsmanship. He doesn't remember where he got it, but it's the only one he's ever used. A few heroes lean on their table to catch a closer look, including Hawkeye, who leans the furthest, trying to peek the closest. Green pulls it back to his chest, noticing him getting a bit too close. It's the only bow he has. He doesn't want the hero getting ideas if he likes the look of it. Getting the hint, Hawkeye leans back, uncrossing his arms. He's looking at Green a little more interested now. Why did you choose vigilantism? The hero tech spoke up after everyone watched him put his bow back over his head. He was looking at Green with interest, a pen in his hand, writing on a notepad in front of himself. It's illegal, yet you still choose to put yourself on the streets. You could have hurt people. Green had prepared himself for this question. Of course, being in a room full of heroes, this question was going to be brought up at some point. With a calm breath, Green started to give his thought-out yet mostly fabricated sob story. When I was little, I was saved by a vigilante during the Mycelium War. The villains and heroes had been getting closer and closer to my family's farm for a few years. Then, finally in the middle of the night, they were right overhead. The brutal fright showed up so quickly it was too late to escape. My wings were too small at the time, so I just ran, trying to dodge the rubble best I could. While running away from my burning home, a vigilante known as Crow swooped from the skies and picked me up, flying me to safety. That part was true, but after Crow swooped down to grab Green, he then turned and dived on to grab his sister as well with his other hand. But the heroes didn't have to know that much. After being saved by him, I couldn't see myself as anything except a vigilante. And while I could have applied to be a hero, that would have taken years. If I could even do half of what Crow did for me, then I would consider myself a true hero. I wanted to help as soon as possible. Again, not particularly untrue, just very exaggerated. Sure, Crow had played a part in his want to be a vigilante, but he also has some pretty big other motivations. At least 3, if he's counting right. So, what changed your mind, Pesky Bird? QH asked, eyes flicking up from the house of cards he was building. You said the man who rescued you was a vigilante. Why become a hero at all, then? Fantastic! Another question he had prepared for! Well, to be honest, it wasn't really the biggest priority to me until I met Hawkeye. Green smiled at Hawkeye, who looked at him interested. We have complementary skills, and I just found out he recommended me for this position through the invitation. And while I'm happy to be helping people any way I can, doing it legally would be a big plus. Hawkeye rolled his eyes, leaning his head into it, and huffed when Green mentioned the recommendation. That whole explanation was very false. but deciding it was very fun to rile up Hawkeye. Green continued, I'd be happy to be paired up with anyone, but it's nice to be noticed by the Hawkeye, you know. He finished condescendingly, batting his eyelashes. Green heard several heroes snicker at Hawkeye as he spluttered his disagreement. He gestured wildly towards Green, standing from his chair. I would never! Like I said last night, I had nothing to do with that, you pesky bird. I don't know who would ever recommend you, but it wouldn't be me. I was trying to arrest you, you bird-brained vigilante, he said with annoyance. Green just chuckled at his inquisition over something so small. Whoa, calm down, hothead. Nino smirked while at the same time Tex spoke up. You met with him last night? Tex asked, confused. Hawkeye paused his rant to look over at his fellow hero, still standing. His face morphed into a flustered stare, like he was caught with his hands in a cookie jar. I thought he was going to turn himself in. He's a vigilante. I didn't know he was going to be here today. He tried to defend himself, but gave up, flopping back into his chair heavily, crossing his arms over his chest. All right, Starvoid started drawling out the word. We are definitely going to have a conversation about going after vigilantes without informing us. Starvoid spoke quietly to the ruffled hero next to him, awkwardly looking between Green and Hawkeye. Let's just move on from whatever that was. I think we know all we need to know, unless anyone has any more questions. Green glanced around the room along with the heroes. Nobody spoke up, causing Starvoid to nod his head, shuffling his papers into a neat stack. Okay then, we can move to the last part of the audition, that being the room. The way Starvoid said the word made Green believe the words were meant to be capitalized. It got everyone's attention the way he said it. The mood shifted from informal and friendly to a little more serious in nature. Green looked to the wall with the one-way glass. He doesn't know what's beyond those doors, but whatever it is, it's his last challenge before getting hired. He can't mess this up. He won't. You will walk into the room, then proceed to the center. Await instructions from there. Understood? All the heroes stood up from their chairs, shuffling over to the observation window. Green gets the hint and makes his way over to the doors as well. Starvoid meets him there, grasping the handle before he opens the door and leans close to Green. The trial will begin when the lights turn on. The room will take the shape of its own trial to put you through. Now, I have no way of truly knowing what the room will end up looking like, but if I had to guess, I'd say make sure you can fly quickly. Green nods confidently. If all he had to do was fly quickly, then this would be easy. Nodding back, Starvoid opens the door and steps back. Green takes his first steps into the pitch-black room. He's not quite sure where the true center is, as the light that bleeds him from the first room only shows about 3 or 4 feet. But after taking around 15 steps, Green stops. The door behind him closes with a soft click, leaving him in complete darkness. He tries to look around himself, eyes adjusting and readjusting, trying to catch a glimpse of anything. His ear feathers ruffle, working overtime listening for sound. Nothing. There was nothing to see or hear, leaving Green to reach up and grip his bow. Suddenly, Green's eyes were assaulted with pure white, and he felt a wave of heat hit his body. He shuts his eyes, stumbling back slightly before catching himself. He freezes, slowly opening his eyes, blinking rapidly to adjust to the sudden overwhelm of his senses. Finally blinking away the pain, he takes a look at his surroundings. His eyes involuntarily widen, stunned. The room is impossible. He's standing on what looks to be around a 5 foot by 5 foot platform, completely surrounded by lava. Looking at the edges of the platform, he sees his heels are mere inches from the edge. He jumps forward with a startled chirp, clamping his mouth shut as soon as the noise reaches his ears. Green glanced back around the room, overwhelmed, noticing the room itself is approximately the same size as the one he just came from. But when he looks up, he can't see the ceiling. There's just shapes coming from the walls further up, randomly acting as if they were trying to block his view. He can't see an ending. The windows were gone, replaced with sheer white concrete. Green assumed he was going to be watched and judged, but now he isn't quite sure. He felt his heart beating thickly in his chest. This was significantly more dangerous than he thought it was going to be. Is he just expected to live? They don't need to watch because if he lives, then he lives. If he dies, well. In all the possibilities he thought up, most were centered around a simulated villain fight, something that was dangerous but part of the job. Bad guys with knives, no problem. He has the high ground with his wings. Heroes with powers, not an issue since he's trained. Villains trying to take over the city, he can talk his way out of that no problem. But being surrounded by lava? One wrong move and he's gonna be seriously hurt. At the moment, though, he was safe on the solid platform, the only sound being the popping molten rock and a feeling from the rolling heat. Okay, this is fine. Whatever trial this was, he would pass no problem, except the unexpected and all that. Breathing in the scalding air, Green spins in circles, taking it all in while trying to figure out what his objective is. There's no notes or signs telling him what to do. Huffing, Green looks back up, puzzled. He starts to tap his foot, getting increasingly annoyed at the lack of direction. His feathers ruffled in irritation. Pulling his wings around him, he started running his clawed hand through the feathers, coaxing them to settle. Sighing, Green twists the feather into place. Suddenly pausing, Green remembers the word Astarvoid. Of course. He pulls his bow from around his shoulders, then spreads his wings to their full span. Taking a deep breath, he propels them down, throwing himself into the air. As soon as his feet leave the platform, he feels something wrap harshly around his wrist. Surprised, he stutters in the air, losing some ground. Catching himself, he hovers and brings his arm to look up at his face. Where normally would be nothing but his long black shirt, there was what looked like a normal wrist cuff, except this one is counting down from 10 minutes. His eyes widening, Green looks back down at the platform. It's gone, completely engulfed by the lava that he abruptly realizes is quickly rising beneath himself. Shit. Green thrusts his wings downwards in shock, shooting himself further into the air, narrowly avoiding his boot being melted off his foot. Releasing a shaky breath, Green raises his head to look at the shapes above himself. Where there used to be a seemingly endless ceiling with oddly shaped blockages, there's now several pillars that look as if they were taken straight from Rome, stretched from one side to the other. They left only gaps just barely big enough for Green's body to fit through. Not the worst odds he's ever faced, but difficult. Looking down, Green noticed that the lava was definitely getting closer, quicker than he felt comfortable with. He raised his wrist to glance at the too-tight watch. 9:30, it read. Okay, that's fine. He can last 9 minutes and 30 seconds of just dodging random pillars. Easy. Flying around the pillars, Green kept a close eye on both the steadily rising molten lava and the timer. He definitely was feeling the heat. Sweat was already starting to drip down his forehead and the back of his neck. He felt his lungs protest the seething air along with the excursion from dodging pillars that never seemed to end, randomly appearing with barely a gap enough to fit both him and his wings. Smoothly swerving between two rough pillars, pulling his wings in close, Green huffed a breath. He was really starting to rethink his desire for this job. Dodging a few more pillars, Green was greeted with a few hundred feet of empty space. He paused, if only to just catch his breath. He was used to flying quickly, but the twisting and turning was definitely getting to him. He didn't have too much time because the lava was still rising, so he must continue. With a final short sigh, he covered the empty space quickly. Curiously, he was met with a ceiling. A completely white, solid blockage ceiling. He couldn't continue going further up. Hovering, Green realized his arms to push against the faux wall he knew it was, but it didn't budge. Nervously glancing back down, Green grimaced at the lava was persistently getting closer and closer. He started to bang on the ceiling, listening for any false walls or empty space beyond. There was nothing, just a consistent, solid thunk throughout the whole structure. Green let his arms fall hotly. Think. Green flew down a way, glancing around the walls for any sort of clue. His eyes shooting between each wall and the lava getting steadily closer and closer. He was starting to get a bit panicked. He scanned the shrinking room as he was forced to fly closer to the ceiling again. Then finally out of the corner, he spotted a single red mark on the wall, about a foot down from the ceiling. He flew closer, and upon inspection, he recognized it immediately. A target. Quickly, he flew back from the circular target, knocking an arrow. He had to pull his feet up away from the lava as he leveled the arrow. Then finally let it fly true, striking its home in the center of the target. The ceiling disappeared as soon as the arrow struck. In between the blink of his eyes, it was gone as if it never existed. Green didn't have time to dwell on this as the lava was only a few feet below him. Racing higher away from the molten rock, he noticed more and more targets appearing on the walls. He reached around, grabbing a few more arrows with his one hand, knocking one at a time while holding the rest. Scanning the walls and releasing the arrow at any hint of red targets. This was significantly easier. Green realizes. Fly up, scan the walls, find the target, shoot, continue. He was able to gain quite a ways away from the rising lava. Of course, his happiness can't last forever, as he slowly watched the pillars start to show up again. But now, not only was he having to hit targets to continue moving upwards, but now he's having to go back to scraping his way around obstacles. It was harder to find the targets around the columns, making his lead on the lava disappear almost as quickly as he got it. Was it rising faster? Catching a quick glance at his wrist, he read the time. 1:08. Has it already been 9 minutes? Green can feel his wings getting tired every time he changes his direction on short notice. But while this was an interesting challenge, Green wouldn't say it was incredibly hard. It made sense for a hero. He supposed, having to dodge and weave through obstacles while keeping a steady, quick aim. So while Green is struggling, only slightly, he can certainly keep this up for a while. Then he heard it. A rumbling sound vibrates the air around him. Not stopping, Green continues to fly higher while dodging and shooting arrows as he needs to. Looking around when he can, he sees it. A giant crack starting even below the lava traveling up, and spider webbing onto the pillars he's been dodging. He looks around to see another target. Without thinking, he lets an arrow go. He watches as the arrow hits its mark as a crack splits the target in half. His arrow gets wedged in the wall, widening the crack, sending more fractures to spread. His eyes widen and heart drops as he watches the fissure run along until the pillars above him start to crumble. Oh, fantastic! Banking to the left, Green dodged a chunk of the concrete and wall falling past him into the lava below, sinking below and disappearing. His eyes widened almost comically. Okay, maybe now was panic time. He swiftly brought up his wrist to check the clock. 45 seconds, that's all he had left. Rubble was falling onto his shoulders and dusting his hair. Jumping back in alarm, right as a hunk of the concrete fell past his front. Looking up, he saw there was still faux ceilings blocking his path and targets on the wall. Scowling, Green clutched his bow tighter while pulling more arrows out of his quiver. Now this was a challenge. Dashing past a falling pillar, Green went over, pulled his wings in close to go under, then shot back up around the plummeting rocks. He kept an eye on the walls, shooting anything that looked even vaguely like a target. Shot after shot went out, but none of them seemed to be the last one. The ceiling remained, as did the ever-rising lava. Spotting a much larger falling pillar, Green raced over, landing on it as best as he could. While he was losing height, he was able to focus on the walls for longer. He was snapping his head every which way, but there was no more targets he could see. There were tens of his arrows sticking out from the walls, and no target that he could see was left unmarked. Frustrated, Green hopped back into the air, feet before the lava consumed his makeshift perch. Columns continued to rain down around him as he fought to gain back the height he lost. Later, Green would recall how the masses falling around him seemed infinite, just seeming to spawn and then fall. At the moment, Green could care less about the logistics of it. He wanted out. He could see the ceiling above him, not 30 feet away, when he finally miscalculated, swerving too far left, clipping his wing on a smaller chunk of rubble. But that was all it took at that speed for Green to lose his balance, flipping him with his back to the roof and face to the hot lava practically upon him. Time seemed to slow as he glared around himself, seeing that he was put in the direct line of a large falling pillar. He watched with wide eyes between the closing in lava and the concrete that got closer and closer with nowhere for him to go. He squeezed his eyes shut, feeling the room get hotter and hotter. He could feel his heart in his throat, beating wildly while his wings fluttered between, keeping himself up and seizing with fear. He waited for the inevitable, and he waited, and waited. Slowly, Green peeked his eyes open. It was pitch black, as if he never opened his eyes at all. He was still on his stomach, his arms by his face as if to protect himself, bow and arrow still in hand. He scratched lightly at the floor, feeling if it was real. It was. Slowly he lowered his wings, pained from working overtime and being hit with rubble. Gathering his strength past the confusion, he pulled his arms underneath himself, sitting up. Taking stock of his body, he felt tired and a bit sore, but otherwise as if nothing happened at all. He caught the sight of a soft light flashing on his wrist. Sitting fully, he raised his arms to read the flashing 000. As soon as he acknowledged the timer, it stopped blinking. Green felt the grip release his wrist, no longer attached. He continues to stare at his wrist. Even though without the soft light, he can't see anything there. The room was silent until a soft click was sounded directly in front of him. His head shot up to the sound as a door opened, illuminating the darkness around Green. Green's mouth opened in a soft O, as none other than Starvoid stood dead center of the doorway, highlighted with a halo effect from the bright lights of the room behind him. He held out his hands in front of himself, gloved palms out towards Green. "You're hired," he spoke softly, his voice wavering a bit. "When can you start?" And that is the end of Chapter 4.